Lisa is here.
Welcome. Lost track of my list here. Central. Welcome back. South Central.
Hi, Jillian's here.
Welcome. South Coast.
Jessica here.
Welcome. Southern.
Renee's here.
Welcome. Frontier.
Donna's here.
Welcome. Eastern Oregon.
Kelly's here.
Welcome. Blue Mountain.
Erin's here.
Welcome. Four Rivers.
Hi, everybody. Krista here.
Welcome. I think I got everybody from, did I miss any hub folks? All right. And then staff, let me see. Anne.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Welcome. John.
Hey all, John Reeves, good afternoon.
Welcome, welcome. Margie.
Hi, everyone. Good to see all of you.
Welcome. And I know I'm here, Denise and Carmen. All right. And anybody else, staff or folks that are on the call that we didn't get? All right. Okay, so with that, remind me, where are we going next, Carmen? I forgot.
Next is you with equity training requirements, and then we'll switch to KPI.
Very good, thank you. So I know I got an email this morning from Amy, thank you, about my favorite kind of emails that go out from us, the stock thou shall do something by this date email, which I tried to block. But did other folks get, can you just give me a raise of hands? Did you get an email about the equity training? Okay, good. All right. I wasn't sure because I had asked that it was not sent to you all. Because I wanted to address it since we did not do anything to amend the contract, et cetera. But I'm aware that many folks have either done some type of equity training. I know I've actually attended a couple of them through the COVID situation and this contract, and or have plans to do so. And we also, the division is creating, I think, a very short training that I think will be able to be substituted for some of the grantees. So what I would like to do is also think about, and I don't think, when you think about the requirement for what the training is supposed to be doing, which is moving your work forward, Carmen and I have been talking about other possibilities as well. I don't know if anyone, I think Jillian did, but myself went through the collective impact conference last week, and there were quite a few good webinars on equity that I think would be really great for folks to listen in on, and we'll have access to those in the next 2 weeks because I went through that conference. And so we were thinking that there would be things there that would be very juicy for you and your staff to also use that we would take as meeting the requirement for the equity training. So what we would ask is that folks, if you would just send me a quick email and let me know, yes, we've been through the training, either our whole staff is done, or like in the case of the email I got today, like our directors went through, but our staff is going to do something else. So just kind of let me know where you're at. If you have plans to do something, let me know. Hang on one second, Kelly. And then if not, if you would like to have something put together, whether that be what, you'll have your choice of what the division comes out with, and or some other possibilities that Carmen and I are working on. And we do have the good luck of, having a training expert as one of our hub managers. So we're going to come up with some good stuff for you guys too, that's actually good for your work. So just don't worry about the email. We'll talk about dates too, I'm flexible on the contract dates as well. And we'll figure out how to meet the requirement in the contract period. So, okay, Kelly, question.
So I clicked on the link of the report and I submitted it. It took me 8 seconds.
Right.
And I submitted it. Do you need an email in addition to submitting that report?
I would appreciate, just for my own keeping track, because that doesn't come to me. Like I said, I didn't know it was going to go out to you guys. I was going to track that piece. So if you could just let me know. And I think like you, I happen to know because I went through your training. So but yeah, folks would just let me know. And I'm curious what folks are doing too, because again, in peer learning, like what can we share with others? Like, hey, we did this awesome online thing and got a lot out of it for our staff. Other people could do this. So yeah, any, if you could just send me a short little, this is what we're doing, I would appreciate that.
Denise Bess is in the chat asking the required number of hours for hub staff to complete.
So the requirement in the contract is 8 hours. We're flexible on that because certainly the training that the division is going to do is not going to be 8 hours. And so if that is not what you know, and I apologize for those folks that have taken that letter to the law. And I think it's, you know, it is what it is in COVID. As you'll recall, when we first started with that requirement coming up, we said we weren't sure how we were going to handle it. So I think it's really about, can you do something that's not just checking the box, but more, getting to actually moving your equity work forward.
And clarifying that it's 8 hours per the contract period, per the biennium, correct?
That's the biennium. Yep. Yes. And if people have filled out the form back to the grants team too, when you send me an email, just let me know that. Yes, I did. No, I didn't, et cetera. So.
And Bess, answering your question of if you've had 8 hours of equity training on different topics, but not all one training, is that okay? And yes, it can be spread across different topics, different days. It doesn't have to technically, technically be part of one training.
Yeah, we'd rather that actually. We like the idea of spreading it out and doing things with your staff throughout the contract period. Other questions? Sorry, I'm not managing the chat very well here, Carmen.
This is Dorothy. I don't know why this. So we have 2 new folks because of coordinated enrollment that were hired like since the beginning of the year. I'm guessing. So like if we don't have 8 hours, like they haven't been to an equity training in the last, whatever it's been, 4 months. So how do you want us to handle that? Like my staff that's been around is a different story than like brand new staff. How should we handle that part?
Again, now, Ann, this is your contract. So with coordinated enrollment, but I'm going to go towards the loose piece here, which is if they can be like, do a workshop or what have you, that's great. And of course, if it's in your contracts are on a different timeline. Of course, we're trying to do all these things together. So I don't know, Ann, what's your
I'd like to tie it to the way that the overall contract and requirements are coming out. So we can look at coordinated enrollment staff and try to be flexible there.
Yeah. So Dorothy, I think like we'll offer some 1 hour, we'll definitely have some 1 hour workshops that you guys can access. So if we could, and again, thinking about like what their type of work is, we'll give some good descriptors. So that's like something you could send them through, and that will meet the letter.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just double check. Did I get everything, everybody? Kelly's put some good stuff in the chat for trainings. If people are interested. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so I think we'll move on to the next piece, which is about the KPI summer programming. Beth Green's going to join us at 1:30, which is actually perfect timing for me to just jump in and talk real quick. Beth is coming on to share with us a resource guide that PSU put together for all of you on, possible ways of spending out this massive amount of money that we're going to have only a few months to spend down on. And so she can only be on the call 1:30 to 2. So as soon as she hops on, even if we're in the middle of questions, we'll move over and then come back to finishing up after she jumps off the call at 2. But let me just say that, basically in general, the memo has a lot of information, but it all adds up to one thing, which is we've got basically 2 blocks of money. The first $1 million goes from April 15th to June 30th. It's on the new funding formula. And then the second $3 million is July 1st to September 30th. And I know it's a short timeline, but this is what the legislature put together. So we're going to have to go with it. I would suspect that folks are gonna, especially some of our larger hubs may have some trouble spending it, and some of the smaller ones may wish they had more. So I'm gonna submit the amendment late this week. What I would ask for people to think about is when you look at your dollar amounts in that spreadsheet, think about, wow, I really wish I had an extra 20 grand, or there's no way I'm going to be able to spend this money. Like, there's no way I'm going to have an extra 100,000 or something left. And please let me know ASAP if you're in one of those boats, because once the amendment is submitted with the dollar amounts, then that's what we're going to have to stick to. I can't reallocate. But if, like, for instance, a larger hub knows we can't, we want to let 50,000 go to somebody else, then we could reallocate that to another hub that wanted extra dollars. So does that make sense to everybody what I'm saying? Okay. So, and if you have any questions, I'm totally free to talk. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, whatever. In the memo, it kind of outlines to you, basically, you'll see the language. I lifted from the purpose and the background, the language that was from the summer funding document that ODE put together. And then we just basically went through, it's your current, thank goodness, this is a good day to be happy that we have grants that go through September 30th, because we can amend and not have to try to start fresh. And you know what nightmare that would be with procurement timelines. So basically, you're going to use the current existing KPI grant to put these dollars in. So you can use that statement of work as your guide. And again, think of, what the intention of the money is about: returning children to school ready. And we're going to go as far as the P3 continuum. So if you're doing things for red-shirted kindergartners, kids getting ready, going into first, second, and third grade, it's really thinking about the P3 piece. We'll allow any of those types of programming. Right now, which is kind of crazy when the state is shut down, and more than half of us are shut down, we're saying that any kind of programming should have some element of in-person, because again, it's about trying to get them ready to come back. In person, that is of course a moving target, but that's what we would like you to be aiming for when you're thinking about Jumpstart or transition programs. It can be a hybrid, so some in person, some online learning. Regarding the professional development piece, again, all that's allowable, thinking of helping educators, parents, caregivers, et cetera, in getting kids ready, the social emotional pieces, those things. That can all be online learning. That does not have to be in person. There's been questions about staffing. You can use dollars for staffing. Again, we're asking that you're looking at that it's directly in service of getting kids ready to re-enter kindergarten. So not, let's be smart of how we're using the dollars, that they are in line with what is wanted for what we're trying to achieve here. And then programming that begins, in the period of time that was fully paid for, that went a little bit after the date, could certainly be looked at, right? So, but we don't want things that are starting October 1st, et cetera, because the dollars have to be spent by September 30th, and everybody knows what the letter of the law is on assuring that you're doing reimbursable things. But if you had like a Jumpstart program that, had started in August and went into October, but it was all paid for and done, then I don't think that's an issue. If you're doing anything that's getting kids ready to return back and be ready for school, that's what we're looking for. So I'll just, and the other thing I should say is that the legislature put numbers on numbers that they would like served. So we'd like to see 2,000 children served in the period across all of the dollars, which I don't know. Again, it's not like it's going to come back if it doesn't, but that's what we're aiming for as well. So with that, and I see the chat has got stuff. Oh, thanks, Jillian. So the spent, okay, let me go back here. So Danny, the first $1 million does have to be spent out by June 30th. And then so again, if you're even thinking about, because the money starts April 15th, if you guys have expenditures that you would have made, you can go ahead and use these dollars to allocate to those expenditures. And then I would also think about like that bridge funding that I was telling everybody, don't spend in the bridge because it'll come out of your next contract. Well, now isn't it a good thing we have this money in the bridge? So think about what you were thinking about doing with those dollars. That would also hopefully tide you over while we get the amendment in place and actually get the dollars allocated to you as well. So hopefully that answers. Did that answer, Danny?
It does. Just beyond that, like knowing that it's already May 4th,
Yeah.
and it is going to go in for amendment this week. Like, what's the timeline there for actually receiving dollars? Because they're not going to let me just spend dollars I don't have.
Yeah, and if there, you need something in writing that says, I assure the money's coming to you, I would suspect that it's highly unlikely that those dollars are loaded to EGMS prior to July, to be quite honest. I mean, this is just the reality of the world we live in. So if they can, you know, as usual, front the state money, that's probably going to be you will be getting those dollars. So, and I will send you the copy of the amendment, but if anybody in your fiscal department has questions, they're certainly welcome to contact me.
Denise, this is Jessica from Clackamas County, and
Oh,
one of my
hi.
staff just said, "Oh, your face." So did I hear you correctly? Let me explain my face.
Yes.
Did I hear you correctly that it is possible that the money might not be available in EGMS until July 1st, but we will have been expected to expend it by June 30th?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Thank you for that
Yes.
clarification.
Yep.
We
Now, of
will
course-
need a letter of probably an email is fine, but something that outlines that would be so helpful to have.
Yep, that's great. And if, you know, again, we understand that not everybody is going to be able to spend out the dollars. And, you know, I understand too, you have your own procurement requirements and issues as well. So that's why I say if it feels like, I think you know, we've heard from other programs and other pieces of this, there's no way we're going to spend any of that money that's from April to June. If that's the case, we understand the money will just go back to the coffers since it's general fund dollars. And if you do know that that's the case for sure, you're not even going to attempt it, I would like to have that information so that we could try to reallocate it to someone else. If you think you want to try it and it doesn't happen, well, it's like anything else. We'll sweep it back in later in the year. But I can get you something, Jessica, and anybody else that needs it. We'll just I'll put a form email or memo again together saying what the timeline is once I submit the amendment late this week. Okay, let's see here. I think that's it. Any other questions? And I think Beth will be with us in 3 minutes here. Okay. Great. Well, and if folks want to, I know that Beth's going to say this when she gets on, but if you need assistance, PSU is available to give technical assistance on, you know, what kind of things we can do to spend those dollars, what kind of best practices. I think you're going to be really excited with I've seen the resource guide that they put together. And of course, Carmen and I are totally open to have conversations with you as well. And the other thing I would encourage people to do is to be talking to your friends in the equity fund. We know that they also have $2.5 million to spend out. And I think they're going to be even in a bigger pickle because those grants expire June 30th. So they're going to need to be new, like letters of interest in this whole thing. So I would ask, and I know that we've said we're going to start doing more work with Kimberly Moa and the equity fund and really start to try to better align and knit our work together with them. So if there's assistance, I know like Lisa had let me know that they're talking to their grantees from the equity fund. If folks need assistance with like, hey, I'm not sure I know who everybody is or et cetera, you know, please let us help you with that as well. Cause I think we've got some new grantees that aren't quite as used to dealing with state funds and all the fun that you all are. So anything that you can do to provide assistance is appreciated. Cool. Okay. So let's see here. Reporting. Yes. So the reporting, the legislature, I'm going to have to provide monthly information. So we're going to do a very simplified, not like your usual reporting tab for KPI, very simplified, like what did you do this month? I think what we'll do, because the April time period is just 2 weeks, is the first one will be due, and we'll do it 30 days after the period. So we'll start and do April, May combined, and then that'll be due in June, and et cetera. So it'll be, like I said, we'll make it very simplified and easy to just keep track of, so we can start to kind of track like how many kids got served and what's happening in the system. So we'll get that out to you here ASAP in the next 2 weeks. Let's see. Just checking the chat again. Okay, good. I think I got that. All right. Any other questions? And Beth, have you joined us on the line yet?
I don't see her, but I'm going to put the link to the list of resources that she and her team created in the chat. So if people want to pull that open, that's the document that will be, or one of the documents we'll be referring to in our conversation with Beth. We asked their team to put together some tried and true evidence-based programs that we've seen here in Oregon and elsewhere that would be that would qualify to be used under this new funding. This is clearly not an exhaustive list, but it is a good starting point. And it's broken down by section in there too.
Good, thank you. Well, I'm not sure. I was just checking email to see if Beth had emailed me. So I know she was coming from another meeting. So let me just shoot her a quick email. I hate to get started on coordinated enrollment and have to stop 1 minute into it.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 second here. All right, let's see if we. All right, well, we still wait. Any other, Carmen, I'm just trying to think other updates that we need to give to folks right now about what's happening.
There's a lot of things happening. I don't think we have any pressing updates though, other than what we have in here.
Right.
I have a question.
Okay.
What's going on with the becoming your own authority thing?
Oh, and
So-
Beth is here. I see Beth, by the way. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Perfect. Oh, good. There, we'll get her on. So it's in progress, Krista. I don't know, without Troy on the line, and what we figured we would do, because he couldn't be here today, was send a written update on where we're at in each of those bills. So we will send you more information on that. And so with that, I want to turn to Beth because I know she has a very short period of time. Beth, we just shared in the chat box the resource guide link that you sent to Carmen and I, and we just reflected over the memo and the spending, et cetera. So we've kind of got it teed up for you to talk to us about the resource guide.
All right. I actually didn't get the link. I don't know if you want me to pull it up and share the screen, or if it's easier for me just to talk in general about what it is.
Like I just put it in there again, so you should be able to see
There it is.
Mhm. And Beth, actually, there might be a couple people on the call that you haven't met before. Would you mind just introducing yourself and your role?
Of course.
Sorry, we could have also introduced you, but as you started talking, I was like, actually, we have some newer people. Let's go backward a step.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Carmen.
Beth.
Yeah, so I'm Beth Green, and I'm the Director of Early Childhood and Family Support Research up here at Portland State, working out of my home office in Portland. And I, as well, in addition to a number of projects that I've worked with you locally, many of you as local partners, and then with the State Early Learning Division as well. We've been working to support Diane and I, who I know many of you know Diane and Isabella, have been working for the last number of years to support the KPI grant funding stream and related evaluation. So sort of as a part of that role, KPI has been, you know, a little bit in flux this year and in terms of work for the future. But I think now there's a little bit more guidance around at least some of the spending constraints and goals for KPI dollars, at least between now and the end of summer. And please stop me if I say anything that sounds wrong, because I feel like it's been a little bit of an ever-shifting picture, so I don't want to misspeak. So anyways, I'm here to just join your discussion. I know Denise and Carmen had asked us to do a little bit of thinking about the fact that there's some dollars available for kindergarten transition related programs that could be sort of, you know, to use an old term, shovel ready. In terms of rolling out this summer, and to provide some resources and a little bit of background around some of those, many of which are currently being implemented at one place or another across the state through KPI, mostly through KPI and other funds. So we put together sort of a resource document that we can share with you that just has some really basic information, and what it actually has even more so is links to other information about things that might be potentially feasible to roll out this summer and into the fall. So I feel like the summer is here. It's like tomorrow. So that's what I did, and that's the document that's in your chat. And I'm happy to I can open it up and kind of walk through a little bit of what's in there just to show you, but also just wanted to offer that, you know, part of our evaluation has been a little bit in flux. And so we had talked with Denise and Carmen about, you know, we are available if you have questions, or maybe if you're thinking about a certain strategy and want to learn more, we could help provide a little bit of additional support to do information gathering or other kinds of things around summer use of KPI funds for over the summer kind of kindergarten transition type of work. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we're a resource to you, and I think you all know how to reach us. So was there anything else, Denise and Carmen, that you wanted me to talk about? Or
No, I think Beth, if we could, if we want to talk through the resource guide real quick, that might be helpful. And folks, you know, interactive conversation. So if anybody's been thinking about anything or has any awesome ideas that are not listed on there, please feel free to jump in either on the chat or of course just jump in.
Yeah, just jump in.
Beth, I just made you a host, so I can share, but if you want to share and control your scrolling for us, you can also do that, whatever is more comfortable.
Sure, I can share. I guess I need to get the document open first.
And I think it might be helpful in this conversation to for everyone that if we're hitting on something that you have used in the past that was really successful, if you wanted to chime in and just say like what you liked about it, or any future plans you have, it would be helpful for others to hear that as well. I know that we know about a lot of the pieces of work that other people do, but not exhaustively.
So this is the document, and we can share it. We can send it to you through email, and you have the link there. So it's loaded in Google Docs. But so this is really just, as I said, a resource list of things that we were able to glean, many of which, as I said, are already being implemented. One of them is a tool that we developed actually a number of years ago that was called the High Impact P3 Strategies, or HIPS document. And that has actually a lot of information about a variety of different kindergarten transition programs around kindergarten readiness, family engagement, and K-3 outcomes and skills. So there's a lot of different programs, as well as just ideas and practices for improving kindergarten transitions. So just wanting to bring that back to your attention. I'm not going to click on those right now because sometimes that can be a rabbit hole. There were also some things that were pulled together as part of some additional work that we're doing with the South Coast Early Learning Hub, who asked us a while back to talk about things that could be done remotely through kindergarten transition, so virtual. I know that part of the expectation is for at least some kind of hybrid model. But so these are lists of programs and supports that were put together for that purpose, and which may have additional information that could be useful for you in thinking about kinder transition work for this summer. And then in terms of program models, we tried to pull out some of the ones that, Diane used the words plug and play. So ones that are kind of, again, ready to go and could potentially be implemented. I know a number of you have done the KITS program. Lane County especially has done that, but I know Catherine Pears, who is the developer, has talked with a number of hubs about how that could look for this summer, including some remote, doing some hybrid, doing some into the fall kinds of supports. I know the other thing that she's done is, or at least thought about doing, is doing the KITS behavioral training, the training that they do for KITS teachers as a professional development support. So it's a really strong training around understanding children's social emotional needs and how to support them using really positive behavior framework. So she has, I think, done some work to develop that as just a standalone sort of professional development program, as addition to the one that's more of a kids, families, teachers program. So there's just some information about the program, what it is. There's contact information, who you go to get information about the program. There's more detailed information about what the program does. And then there's some people that we put front and center who we know have experience, at least talking with Catherine, doing KITS, which is Michelle from Lane County, and Margie also, we put you on here. I don't know if she's on the call. I saw Lisa from Marion Polk. So those are folks we knew were already connected and you might connect with as well. Ready for K is another one that we know a lot of hubs have been looking at or using. We did some work a while back with Yamhill County, I think it was Yamhill County, Jen, on Ready for K and some evaluation work there. It is kind of a ready to go, and it's originally was developed to do across the entire school year, but we think it probably could be modified to be done in a shorter time period. It's available in English and Spanish.
We've been doing it 3 weeks in a row,
3 weeks in a row. See, there you go.
So it works that way too.
Yeah, that's what we figured. It's like, it doesn't have to be right across a year.
We've been doing Ready for K a lot as well. And we have been able to develop a successful virtual model as well. And then we also have with the Reading Foundation, it's not exclusive to us, but been working with them on setting up a portal so that families can do online self-paced learning. And we have found that pretty successful. Most successful attendance is when people know that, because we have done a lot of just hanging out on Facebook and say, y'all come. A lot of people sign up, it's full in a minute. but then nobody shows up. We've had that happen to us twice. And that's really disheartening.
Put you on the spreadsheet, Lisa, as a resource. Hope you don't mind.
No.
And Beth says to add her for kits as a resource.
Oh, best. Yeah. Okay, great.
And also noted that the pieces you were talking about were in fact true.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, Bess. You know, I only see Catherine like 14 times a week, but we don't ever talk about kids anymore. Okay.
Got a question about Ready for K in the chat from Kelly regarding Ready for K. When you say you have been doing it for 3 weeks in a row, how many hours and how often? Daily, evening events? A little bit more info, please.
Once a week, 2 hours in the evening.
Thanks, Jen.
Abriendo Puertas, Opening Doors, is a culturally specific program for Latinx, especially Spanish speaking, but it's available in Spanish and English. There's a lot of materials that have been developed. It's available face-to-face or in hybrid models. Really well-regarded curriculum. Folks we've talked to, including parents who participated, have really loved that program. I didn't know if there was someone in the Hub circle who was familiar with that. I know, like Marion Polk, I feel like you guys have providers who are offering this, I know for sure. But I wasn't sure if it, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had not as much recently. It's funny to me how different curriculums kind of go in a cycle. And I would say Abriendo Puertas was one that we used a few years ago, and it's not as, I'll say, popular right now because we did a lot. But all of our parent education is done through community partners. So we grant that out.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else doing that program right now? Has anybody been offering that through or know of it? Okay.
We have partners in Multnomah that are doing it.
That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Looks like in Washington too.
Yeah, same with Washington. We've been doing it for quite a while.
My Spanish is terrible. Okay, so this gives you a feel for how we laid out this document. Professional development is another thing that actually seems maybe more feasible to roll out on such a short timeline. The red light, purple light model is one that has been used, I know, by a couple of hubs. Again, there's a link here if you want to learn more about it. There's a little bit here of what the goals are. Required text, what the focus of the materials are. I wasn't sure. Oh, and Diane got information about the credential that's offered if you do it. I don't know if there's anybody on this call who knows of a group that's has offered this.
We have in Yamhill.
Yamhill. Can I put your name down here, Jen?
Sure. We offered it to childcare providers twice.
Conscious discipline, I know, has been offered in a number of hubs, and actually it has come up in a couple of other projects I'm working with as something that really seems to be catching on. It seems to be gathering a lot of steam across Oregon as a approach that people are really liking. I think partly because it's really can be modified to different kinds of groups, from childcare providers to teachers to parents even. And so there's different modules available. And if you go actually to the link, there's a ton of information there about conscious discipline. And I know I know places have been offering this. I'm not sure if there was somebody on this call who knows about it or has experience implementing it.
Actually, Beth, I went through a week of conscious discipline training when I was teaching in dual immersion preschool. This was like 10 years ago. And when I moved back to Oregon, I was kind of hoping that conscious discipline would like come over in a wave, but we got PBIS instead, which is also great. But I think it is distinct. It is different from PBIS in some ways that I think are really strong. And one of the reasons that I think that it's really successful is that over PBIS is that PBIS is it has a strong base in understanding child development, but it doesn't spend as much time in focusing on the educator or the parent and like on their own reaction and understanding like our own brain, like the way that our own thinking and like cognition and psychology plays into how we interact with children. And I also think that conscious discipline does a really good job of creating like community beyond just like being like the safe, kind, be a worker is like really positive in PBS, but conscious discipline is a little bit more, I would say fuzzy, like warm and fuzzy, but also very much research based in how it teaches educators to understand where children's behaviors come from. Beyond just like your milestones of like what you would expect. So that's my plug for it. I think it goes, and I know that it goes really well in tandem with PBIS because I implemented conscious discipline in my classroom, which was a PBIS pilot site.
Beth, our hub has also done a lot with conscious discipline, from providers to parents, hosting summer institutes. So if anyone has any questions, got a lot of information.
All right. All right. And then there are a couple of articles that Diane found online about specific to transitions during the pandemic that might be of interest to you all. And then down here is Diane's email. If you have additional questions or would like to do some problem solving or brainstorming or have a information gathering need that we could support you with around this, getting stuff in place for the summer. So I'm going to stop sharing and come back and see if there's other questions or discussion that people have.
Kelly has a question in the chat box. She has a comment and a question. Has a trainer who works in conscious discipline in Ontario that they often use for professional development. And then the question is, how does this tie with KPI and the reporting requirements?
Okay, I didn't type that right. She's an Oregon. She's an Oregon trainer, not an Ontario trainer.
Oh, sorry.
It says Ontario. It's my fault. Anyway, she's a conscious discipline on Oregon trainer, and I'm sure Erin uses her as well. My question just has to do with reporting. How does that PD work for reporting KPI? How do you want that?
I think if it was KPI dollars, Diane and I talked about this briefly, that we would go ahead and have you do whatever the required data collection is for KPI dollars as a part of, we have the PD tools as well as the other. Does that answer your question? Kind of. Oops, I can't hear you. You're muted, Kelly.
It's because I'm mumbling. I'm mumbling. I'm doing that. So I thought that the summer dollars were tied to in-person children and parents. And I understand we use KPI dollars for PD during the year, but I thought these summer funds were more specific to working directly with children and their families.
You can also, Kelly, use the dollars for professional development, for caregivers, for teachers, for parents, whatever they need to, again, help children become ready to come back to school.
Okie dokie. Sounds good. Thanks.
So it would need to be something that, if that happens, it would have to happen during the summer so that they're prepared for school. So the time frame is by September 30th, if something like conscious discipline happens.
For these specific dollars, yes. So certainly, I mean, the plus is that, you know, if you were going to allocate other things, if you wanted, now you have obviously substantially more money, but for this focus, it has to be by September 30th.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay. So just like the PD and how things have to line up and be ready, are some of these things on this list that we've just gone over, and the one that I was really dialing in on was the Ready for K. So when you say that that's shovel ready, does that mean that I can just purchase it? I have the kit, I know what program I'm going to work with. I'm going to make sure this is implemented, and I know how many kids I'm going to serve. Are there any other requirements, such as does the person facilitating have to be trained ahead of time? Because if they do, that's not shovel ready. So I'm just want to make sure that what I'm looking at, I can just buy it and do it. Is that right?
I think I know the answer to that. I remember, I know that there has to be a facilitator who's trained, but as I recall, and Diane would know this better and she couldn't be here today, there is online training available for facilitators for them to walk parents through the materials in the curriculum. It's a pretty well scripted out curriculum. So it doesn't take like a lot of advanced training. Whether there's a certification for trainer, I'm not sure. Somebody who's Jen might know the answer to
Fairly
that.
certain there's not a certification, but the online training is easy. There's a really good teacher's guide, teacher's manual that goes along with it. It's almost shovel ready. You just have to get your shovel out of the shed, but it's close.
A little shovel.
Thank you.
Jen, does it take a long time to get it? Because I remember there were points in time when we've ordered it in the past. It takes quite a while to receive it.
I'm trying to remember. It seems like the last time we ordered it was maybe a month, but
This is Chelsea from Clackamas. We just ordered some Ready for K and they came in a week. It was very fast. I was super impressed.
Nice.
They're very organized.
So it looks like there's a couple other questions about, yes, curriculum can be purchased regarding activities. So conscious discipline activities would need to be completed. What needs to be done is the money needs to be spent by the end of September. If activities were to flow beyond that and it was all paid for, but you had some things continuing to happen, that would be okay.
And so, yeah, Bess put a comment in there. So Bess, I'm not sure. I know that in Lane County, it's all through the school districts, but I'm not sure that that's required. That is, I think and this is, you'd have to ask Catherine Pears, not me. But from what I've heard in her conversations about some of the stuff she's doing is she's really trying to be adaptable to different kinds of formats for the summer. But yes,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
That's definitely true. They're super adaptable, but if you're gonna do, I just think the traditional kits method, you know, is using school district personnel. I mean, that's part of the benefit of kits is that you're training school personnel in the kits methodology, and so it's just, it takes a while to get those relationships developed and to get the school districts bought in. But we did do last year, because of COVID, kits at home, which is really just for parents, which is a great method, which is delivered virtually, and that could be deployed anywhere around the state. And it's great parent groups. And then to Beth's point, they are offering some professional development for teachers, not the whole KITS curriculum, but really the behavior management strategies, which some of our districts are utilizing. And then they also have been testing a KITS within the school year model, so that it's not just outside of school in the summer. So lots of adaptations, and Catherine's super accessible if anybody wants to chat with her about kids.
Great, thank you, Bess.
Thank you. And I see there's a question about the hybrid and COVID. So yes, obviously, as I said, we want in person to be part of your hybrid model. Of course, the pandemic will decide for us. If that's not possible, we'll certainly be flexible. But again, the idea is getting children to be ready to come back. So that's what we would like you to be aiming for.
And just to be really clear on that, the hybrid expectation does not apply to adult professional development classes. So when we're talking about these curriculum for teachers and educators and family members, that is not, there is not that expectation for hybrid. That can be purely online if that's what you're choosing.
Thanks, Carmen. All right, any last things for Beth before she has to leave us?
We're available if you have follow-up questions. It's lovely to see you all. I miss everybody. I miss face-to-face. Dang it. I'm sure we all do, but it's good to see your faces, and yeah.
Very
Good luck and stay in touch.
Thanks for your work, Beth. And folks, if you have more to add to that document, please feel free to get in touch with Beth and Diane.
Absolutely.
Certainly, they are looking for your resources. And the last thing I'd seen in the chat box, Beth, was things about PAX, the good behavior game as well, which I know has been used quite a bit around the state. So folks that are using that want to send a couple bullets to Beth. That would be great for her to add to the resource guide. We'll just keep that thing moving.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Beth.
everybody.
Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Denise, Carmen,
Yes.
I'm wondering if for something like Kits Online, maybe this wouldn't work because of procurement rules, but with virtual learning, would it work for the ELD to sponsor a bigger Kits Online module that then we could promote to parents across the state, and then they could engage in, instead of individual hubs having to go and make these asks? If it's going to be virtual, maybe you could do a couple different sessions based on time zone difference or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking virtual, the locality piece stops to matter as much at that point.
I'm trying to think, like, this is probably an offline. I got to put my head around, like, it almost feels like working through Lane, who has the relationship and is set up, because as you know, the issue for us is to spend any money is we get stuck in the whole RFP. You think the procurement's bad for you guys, it's worse for us. As you know, we can't spend more than $9,999. Otherwise, it's a full process. So, I mean, we're certainly willing to have a conversation about how we can take some of the dollars and come together and offer a statewide thing. But I think we're going to need that third party outside of us. That makes sense.
I think that you bring up there's an interesting thread there, though, that like Kelly's offer earlier of here's some training that we're doing. If other people want to jump in on it, this really might be a place where if someone gets one thing going and it is virtual, the others might be able to jump in, if we can all stay in communication about what those opportunities are that we're creating in this short time frame. So.
Bess, were you going to say something too?
Oh, just that I'm happy to be a conduit. And also, it gets tricky, right? Because we're all trying to spend our money and our runway is very short in which to do that. And so coordinating something and kind of getting it organized and up and running is a challenge. But if I'm going to talk to Catherine anyway this week. And so I'm just going to throw that out to her and maybe play with something. And if something is doable, I'll certainly send it out to everybody. And if there's interest, we can talk about what that would look like. Because I'm happy to have the money flow through me if that is helpful to people.
Yep. Especially for for some of the larger, when you're looking at your allocation, saying, how are we going to spend this? If there's something we can do statewide that folks want to come together and sponsor, or even one hub that's like, there's no way we're going to spend all this money. We are all in favor of doing that. And we do have some of our backbones are nonprofit, so they're going to have a little bit easier time than those who are tied to county or ESDs or whatever procurement processes. So yes, let's get out of the box on getting these dollars spent. I'm just checking. I see there's a couple more. Okay, cool. All right, you guys, if we're ready, I know that Anne is dying to share some with you.
I'm just wondering.
All right, Anne, you can take it away.
Okay, hi everyone. So a tiny recap. On Friday, you all should have received from John an email that went to CCR and our directors and you all hub directors that gave you more information about what Preschool Promise providers received from ELD about the continuation grants. Including sort of the fact we're looking at a simple continuation grant application, including a section allowing Preschool Promise providers to notify ELD if they'd like to continue with all their slots, they'd like to reduce their slots, or if they're eligible to add additional slots through a reallocation process. We are bound by state procurement policy to only allow providers who applied for more slots than they were initially awarded in the RFA from 2020 to be eligible for those additional slots without having to go through a competitive process. We're also required to consider the scoring of the 2020 Preschool Promise applications in reallocation should the need arise. We want to be able to also take input regionally from coordinated enrollment staff and CCR&R staff about the community need, preferences, families, desires to enroll with certain providers, as well as providers' participation and engagement in TA and coaching for Preschool Promise, to be able to consider that as well in determining reallocation should the need arise. We are in a bit of an imperfect information scenario. We are asking that regions come together, hubs and CCR&Rs, to submit one regional reallocation input that gives us, input on which providers to consider for reallocation based upon, again, that like family preference information and the provider engagement in training and TA. Coaching and TA this year. We will not know at the time that we ask you for this information, which providers have said that they would not like to continue, would like to continue reduced, or would like to receive more. And so are asking basically to give us some information where you can about where would make sense given your vantage point on these providers and for families in the regions and communities as to where that might go. And then upon receiving the providers' applications, would be able to then act upon that information, as well as our constraints of using the 2020 scoring and keeping within eligible providers in this case. Earlier today, you should have received the list of eligible providers and the template that we'd be asking you and the CCR&R in your region to create together or fill out together to provide this input. I think that is essentially it, to just acknowledge this is an imperfect situation of information, but really do want to be able to be responsive to community in the ways that we can. And we're asking that in order to meet our quick reallocation timeline, that we receive this input form back by May 21st. So again, this is one piece of within a potential reallocation. You'll see on the list that there are some regions that have no eligible providers or that have just one eligible provider. In that case, we would not be asking for the regional request. We think if there was to be spaces that needed to be reallocated and we were in a situation to not be able to reallocate them, we'd be looking into a competitive process and would communicate out a timeline and the process for doing that if we get into that situation. So all to say, we have some constraints of being able to reallocate given our current procurement policy and would like to be able to be responsive to the community need and the regional context there and considering that in these decisions should the need arise.
And I'm creating confusion in the chat box. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the due date for the input?
May 21st.
Okay, sorry. It got moved on me, Dorothy, and I missed that part of the memo. So May 21st.
So just so that I can make sure that I'm tracking this. So this is it's a scenario exercise in some way. Should there be slots that could be reallocated under the current statewide allotment, where would those possibly go? But it's not yet known.
That's correct. Yeah.
And it's among even a little bit more nuance than that, Lisa. It would be if there are slots in your hub region that become available to be reallocated, where would they be reallocated within your hub region? And it could even be like within region. Like if you're like, I want them all to like stay in this region, you could think about it that way too.
And also, as I looked at the list, I did a quick sort, so I didn't spend a lot of time on it, so I probably missed it. But this is only a list of those providers who applied last time and were awarded, but not awarded the full amount that they applied for.
That's correct. Okay. That's our procurement boundaries, if you will.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. So anybody, just to carry one step further. So there's a program that's not on that list. They may want to serve more, but because they didn't apply for more, they've received everything they could get, they're not eligible to get more.
For this phase.
For this phase. But when and if, knock on wood, the legislature is done and they allocate even more preschool promise, then there'll be a separate process for that where they could say, give me a whole other classroom.
That's right. We'd have to move to like a competitive process.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Did you see this question in the chat box, Anne, about can a contract move their own slots between counties and between hub regions? Example of two programs, one is under enrolled. Can they move slots to the other program?
I'd have to take that back. My understanding is that they're trying to get more information on the sites allocations for programs like that. But I'd have to take that back and get some clarity there. I know the intent is to keep any slots that need reallocating in the region. But I think for that particular case, I'd have to check in.
Got that, Kelly? That was from Kelly.
Yeah, I get it. And I think that, so it makes me question the numbers that are in the Excel sheet. It looks like all of the slots were moved out of my region into another region.
Ah.
And so then it shows that, anyway, so if you check on it, then we can figure it out.
That sounds good. I can check.
Dorothy?
Yeah, I have two questions. One's a little bit related to what Kelly just asked, which is I think 3 of the 4 providers that are on the list that I got, well, okay, 2 of them, the additional slots they asked for last time, I think they would have a different plan for them if they got that. So in one case, they wanted to have a second classroom within the same location. And now they're talking about, well, if we got more slots, it would be a second classroom, but like in partnership with another program kind of thing. And they just don't know if they're like, would any additional reallocation to them, if it happened, would they be held to their original plan of the RFP, or is that open for discussion with programmatically? I don't know if you know the answer to that. that's my first question. Then I can ask the second question.
Yeah, I'd have to check in on what a provider might have ability to do through their application. I mean, this also, I think, will all be based on a provider saying they're interested in more spaces as well. So to say, you know, also you wouldn't deeming a provider to, you know, have more spaces if they didn't say they were interested, but I think where those spaces go, I want to take that back to see.
Yeah, because it does depend. I mean, so that's part of the calculation of my input, because in both communities, so like in St. Helens, one of the programs wants to, if they got extra spots, would be looking at going into Scappoose, the neighboring community, and in Astoria, it'd be into Napa. And so in trying to fill out that input form, thinking about how the answer to that question might play into what we, you know, like how those communities fit into our whole ECE sector plan. So like that does that make sense? Like that all kind of factors in, which also makes it a little bit challenging to answer some of the questions around like how many families are interested in this program. Well, the answer might actually be like, nope, no families last year were interested in the program in Napa because there wasn't a program in Napa. But if they got more slots and we're able to move it. So those kinds of calculations are playing in for us, or at least in my thinking as I've initially looked at the input form. And then just the second, and maybe this is just a comment, less a question. As I was thinking about having a conversation with our CCR and our team, I think the part that I was struggling with was just generally answering how many families are interested in this program, because I don't want to judge like our 2020, 2021 enrollment year with that question, because things were so odd with COVID, right? Like I feel like we had a bunch of people who were like, you know, I'm going to hit me up next year because I want to do in person, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I look at what we have so far for the 21-22 year, we're still so early in the outreach and planning process. Like I don't trust that those numbers are accurate either. So a little bit, I know that you acknowledge that this is imperfect, but I also want to like acknowledge that what I turn in also feels a little bit not so good, because I don't want to put any program, I don't know, I don't want to disadvantage a program because our numbers are a little bit off. Or a lot off.
I think that's a great point, Dorothy. And I think that like asking that question and answering that question will vary in how useful it is based like by region across the state and across languages too. Like that might be a really useful question in an area that can say like, oh, we've had, you know, 7 parents call wanting Spanish speakers that we've kept track of and we didn't have enough. So we'd like to add to here. Like that's really concrete data that you just have. And it doesn't have to be like super officially gathered data that came out of like a survey or something. It could just be like, that's the knowledge that your staff have and you can base it off of that. It could be something that informal. We're definitely not expecting you to like back up your arguments or like make like a point of like how it is based and like be able to show like, this is how I know all of these different points about what families are looking for. And for sure, like this last year has been really different, and your knowledge of what families want might go back beyond this year too, to when things were more so-called normal. So just definitely want to acknowledge that the data that we have on family need is imperfect for sure. And that what we know from last year is not necessarily applicable to this coming year. So it's only one factor to consider because the data is so incomplete.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. I'm trying to figure out how to frame it. So I have a family child care provider who feels like some of their questions haven't been answered and they're frustrated and they're looking at, gee, do I want to do this next year? I think they really are enjoying it. And I've, referred them to the appropriate places, and they come back to me and say, I'm frustrated because I don't think I'm getting the answers I need. So is there a way, is there a space, since they keep coming back to the hub, that there's a conversation that we can have collectively with them so that they feel heard and that we can, be encouraging to have them keep going?
Jillian, let's talk about that offline. I think I'd need to bring some other folks into that conversation, but appreciate you raising it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Can help.
And you want this just through the PDF that you guys sent us, or will there be a link to a form?
I think what I'm looking at is trying to create a space for you all to upload this PDF.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Back there. And Begonia, I see your question about valid findings. I think that'd be a great conversation to have, like in convening with CCR partners, to talk about, how this input can help find. I think that part of the ELD considerations process is also looking at, compliance, and making sure that those any decisions around reallocations made take those into consideration as well. All right. Well, any questions that come up, please don't hesitate to reach out. And like I said, I'll be giving you the method to have you and CCR and our partners submit this input template here shortly.
Thanks, Anne. Well, I think that's our agenda for the day, right, Carmen?
That's our agenda for the day.
Unless anyone has any burning last minute questions, we're going to give you 10 minutes that you are required to go outside, stick your face in the sunshine, get a little vitamin D, and take a nice walk around the block, whatever you need to do to just have a little time, our gift of time to you. Happy spring, everybody. And we will be in touch as quickly as possible with the reporting mechanism for KPI and other things that you need. Don't forget to use that resource guide, add to it, and send me that equity stuff we talked about earlier on. And with that, I'll just double check in, make sure we didn't miss anything in the chat box. All right. Good wishes to all of you. Happy May, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.